Breaking news tonight, major concerns about a new Sydney coronavirus cluster. These are the scenes at the Crossroads Hotel at Casula, an emergency test clinic set up this afternoon. New COVID cases linked to the pub, a warning to patrons to get tested. Also tonight, the Health Department admits to a major blunder. 77 crucial tests have been lost in the system. Victoria records the nation's highest daily virus spike, a staggering 288 new cases. And Queensland reopens its borders after months. Also tonight, a little girl killed in a truck crash on the Hume Highway. Chemical inferno, fire tears through a healthcare company's warehouse, likely to burn for days. From Struggle Street to Millionaires Row, Mount Druitt gets a real estate surge. And Manly's controversial star punished, fined and sent to referee wheelchair rugby league.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Michael Usher.
Good evening. We've been watching Melbourne's second COVID wave with horror. Now tonight, evidence that it's started to arrive here. There are fears of a new cluster at a pub in Casula where 2 people have now tested positive. These are live pictures right now of queues of people already lining up to get tested. Also a grim milestone in Victoria. 288 new cases, the nation's worst daily spike. Another worry here, a Melbourne traveller staying in Sutherland who's tested positive.
Confirmation the Melbourne outbreak has reached the Sydney fringe. At a caravan park in Sutherland, a Melbourne man in his 20s, the latest corona carrier.
He's come up in the last few days. He has tested positive. He's troubling, I must say, from my point of view.
A second serious outbreak here, Casula's Crossroads Hotel. A pop-up testing centre rushed in today after news a man in his 50s had tested positive following a woman in her 30s earlier this week. Both were there Saturday night, the pub extremely busy.
So what we're obviously looking for is who was the source that potentially infected those 2 individuals at that time.
With confirmed Melbourne connections to Albury, Canberra, Merimbula and now Sutherland, news of another health mishap.
What symptoms do you have today?
I just got a cold.
Veteran radio broadcaster Ian McRae tested on Tuesday and back today after officials revealed they'd lost his test results.
But he said, we've lost the tests. We don't know where they are.
And now admissions they'd lost not just his, but the test samples of 77 people in total.
He said there's a big kerfuffle going on right now. They're trying to find where the tests went to and who's got them.
On behalf of New South Wales Pathology, I'm sorry about that.
All on a day, Melbourne recorded a staggering 288 new cases, the state's biggest one-day spike since the crisis began. It takes their active cases past 1,000 for the first time.
It is concerning. They have called for help. They're getting help.
We've already begun the process of getting 2 million reusable masks made.
And as the virus broke through the ring-fenced city, reaching Geelong and also Bendigo, National Cabinet decided it's time to halve the numbers of incoming overseas travellers, cutting 4,000 a week from Monday.
We have to put the national interest first and the health of Australia.
It will take the pressure off quarantine hotels like the Marriott, where a 63-year-old escapee was yesterday fined $1,000 for allegedly impersonating a flight attendant.
It's proof positive that if you do the wrong thing, there is a high likelihood that you will get caught.
Authorities also coming down hard on the Sheaf Hotel Double Bay over this. Today, raided, CCTV seized.
For heaven's sake, get serious. Social distancing and just being cautious around other people is critical.
Police have also launched an investigation into this rave in Manly. The one bright moment for State Health today, 1 million tests performed. A milestone moment. And in breaking news, the Liquor and Gaming Authority has now revealed that it's fined the Golden Sheaf Hotel off the back of those raids today. A heavy fine, $5,500. And it's been revealed it's the 3rd time they've actually visited this establishment. The first time they issued them with an improvement notice. The second time they had. But this time they said this breach of crowds of 250 people, simply too much and jeopardising public safety. So they hit them with the fine. Still, the top fine, the maximum fine, Michael, some $55,000. So it could have been far worse. Michael?
All right, Chris Reason from Double Bay, thank you. Let's go now to Cameron Price, who's at that pop-up clinic in Casula tonight. Cam, good evening. People are already rushing to get tested by the look of it.
Yeah, Michael, they are. We got here an hour and a half ago. There were just a handful of cars. Now there are hundreds. This line snaking through the car park and spilling out onto the Hume Highway as locals rush to get tested after word got out of those 2 positive cases that were here over the weekend. Many that we have spoken to say they're not experiencing any symptoms, but they were here as well, and they want to be tested as a precaution.
Possibly I could be positive for corona, so see what happens.
Just want to make sure, that's all. Family, for the family.
Now, this clinic will be open until 9 o'clock tonight, and we are told at least open for the next few days. Those who have been tested now being told to self-isolate until their test results are back in the next 24 to 48 hours. Michael?
All right, some fast action there. Cam Price in Casula, thank you. On Queensland's roads and airports, there were long-awaited reunions as the state opened up to just about everyone. People who've been in Victoria in the past 2 weeks are barred. Everyone else's permits checked as they crossed the border, making for slow going.
At the stroke of midday, ready, set, stop. That road in the background is the queue to get into Queensland. Gridlock through Tweed Heads and the state's M1 heading north, still worth the wait.
This is great, yep. Good to see Queensland opening up again.
Personally overseeing this operation, Queensland's Police Commissioner.
Working in tandem with New South Wales Police, the SCS, other agencies, we've got 1,200 police across the state dedicated to this.
Until now, permits were needed to cross with proof of essential travel. It is painful for bus drivers. Every passenger is checked at every crossing.
We have to save people's lives, and this is what we have to sacrifice, and we have to do it.
And while almost anyone can cross now, accreditation is still needed, expiring every 7 days because of Victoria's outbreaks. So more cars means even more traffic.
I get daily messages from employees as well that they're stuck in traffic.
314,000 people have been granted border passes with proof the holder has not been to Victoria, including receipts and time-stamped photos. Providing false information carries a $4,000 fine. Failing to comply with a quarantine direction, $1,300. These people might be liable. One car climbing the nature strip to get into Queensland, another motorbike caught coming the same way.
We actually sometimes do get runners. Unfortunately, not everyone's honest.
Jeff Triplow admitted he was in Victoria 2.5 weeks ago.
I was a bit nervous this morning if we're going to get it, but we finally got it.
Further inland, a line-up eager to get going.
Oh, for sure, mate. We've been waiting 7 days.
Caravan after caravan are on the move again, open road and nothing in their way. But the gateway to the rest of Queensland is in the air. From Cairns to the Gold Coast, a celebration for an economy so dependent on tourism.
The jumpers are off and we're looking forward to the Queensland warmth.
And keener than most to move north today, Ron Swain, separated from his fiancée Violet for 4 months with one objective.
Hug her immensely.
2.5 hours later in Brisbane, he could.
It's a great moment there. Rob's on the border tonight. Rob, hello, a huge operation. I guess authorities there are having to trust that everyone's doing the right thing.
Yeah, Michael, police are doing everything they possibly can on both sides of the border with saturated enforcement. The governments on both sides are doing what they can with severe penalties and heavy deterrence. But you're right, it does rely on a degree of trust, and there were a couple of serious breaches of that today. Not only what we just saw with a few rat runners trying to avoid police without the proper accreditation, but equally an extraordinary event. We're not far away from me. About 20 backpackers got off a bus here at Tweed Heads, walked a couple of 100 metres past the border onto the Coolangatta side, and then alighted a bus on the other side. They walked right past police without any accreditation. And the fact is, there is a loophole here. They could do it. Police is told to tell us they can only check people in cars. No bikes, no pedestrians. Michael?
Robert Avadi on the Queensland border, thank you. Well, from our north to our south, and thousands of residents locked in those public housing towers in Melbourne have had their first taste of freedom in almost a week. But one building remains in hard lockdown as health officials battle an outbreak among its residents.
A short walk to freedom that until midnight was impossible.
I'm free!
For more than 2,000 people in these public housing towers, locked in on Saturday, released last night.
Like in jail, I stuck on my floor. I'm not allowed to get downstairs at all.
It was hard for last 2 days, but I got used to it.
First thing what I'm going to do is to walk around, a bit of exercise and then go back home.
The 8 towers where residents are allowed outside are spread across Flemington and North Melbourne. But 33 Alfred Street in North Melbourne is still locked down.
I've been released. I was on Canning Street, but my parents are in this building behind me. There was a lot of issues with food delivery. There's issues with sanitation in this building.
An infection rate inside the tower of 11%. Far too high, say health authorities, to relax the lockdown.
You know, my father himself, he owns a small business, but he's going to be locked away for another 9 days after he tested negative, and his small business is basically dying somewhere in Footscray.
There'd been public criticism of the decision to use police to enforce public health orders on vulnerable people here. But from some of those residents today, there was gratitude.
Most of them were really nice, and they helped me turn around and take my dog to the toilet. She was the lucky one. She could go out for about 10 minutes every night. Not me.
You know, I'm very happy. Thank you so much for the government. Thank you for everybody you help here.
More than 2,500 residents were tested across the towers. 158 came back positive. They'll be told to stay inside or offered hotel quarantine.
What's going to happen in the space now to ensure that they are safe from the spread of COVID in this building?
Blake Johnson, 7 News.
Leaving our COVID coverage there for now, and a child has died in a terrible truck crash in Sydney southwest. Evan Batten's following this story. Evan, hello. The truck ploughed through a rest stop car park at Menangle.
Hello, Michael. Yeah, it's just awful, this. It's a tragedy that has claimed the life of an 8-year-old girl, left another 4 adults injured. It happened just after 3 this afternoon. A B double left the Hume Highway as it travelled south to enter into a rest area, but for some reason it smashed into a truck and at least 3 other parked cars, and 4 people have been taken to Liverpool Hospital, among them a woman who is in a critical condition. The 44-year-old truck driver has been taken for mandatory blood and alcohol tests. Traffic has quickly built up this afternoon, stretching for at least 12 kilometres, with drivers urged to avoid the area. And specialist police, Michael, are investigating the crash tonight as they try to work out what caused this tragedy. Michael?
So sad, Evan. Thank you for that tonight. A female teacher from Western Sydney High School has been arrested accused of sexually assaulting a student. Police say the victim is a boy, just 14 years old. The woman's fiancé has rubbished the claims, saying his soon-to-be wife would never abuse a child.
She's a high school teacher accused of abusing her position of trust. Over a month, detectives say she had sexual relations with a 14-year-old boy, a student at her Western Sydney school.
It's abhorrent. I mean, ultimately, the teachers have a significant responsibility.
We can't tell you her name or that of the school for legal reasons. Child abuse and sex crimes detectives raided her Greenacre home this morning, seizing her car, her phone, her computer. They're investigating if she sexually assaulted the teenager in a classroom and in her car.
I believe she's innocent. I've been with her for 6 years. She would never, ever, ever do such a thing like that.
It's school holidays now. The teacher has been stood down. The question that police want to answer, were there any others?
If there are other victims out there or other people in the community, both at this school or the wider community, that have information, we'd absolutely urge those people to come forward and report that.
Almost 12 hours after her arrest, the teacher is tonight still here at Bankstown Police Station being questioned by detectives. It is expected she'll be charged over those serious allegations to front bail court tomorrow. Laura Banks, 7 News.
Smoke from a large factory fire in Moorebank has forced the closure of major roads and saw a hazy start to the day for many Sydney-siders. The intense blaze broke out last night, destroying the headquarters of a healthcare company, and it could keep burning for days.
A Western Sydney warehouse erupts in a wall of flames. At Moorebank last night, fire broke out in the packaging area of a healthcare company and spread quickly. 100 firefighters battled 1,000-degree temperatures. It buckled steel, collapsed walls and forced workers there and at neighbouring businesses to evacuate.
We have had reports of large amounts of ethanol on scene, which firefighters are currently trying to extinguish.
The ethanol was for a new business venture producing hand sanitizer. The effects of igniting it were devastating. The entire factory destroyed, cars parked opposite melted.
The amount of ethanol we had at the back, it was quite a lot. So once I heard there was a fire, I go, well, it's going to be big.
We hear something exploded over there like a gas bottle or something, but the people...
Sphere Healthcare produces supplements and baby formula. Investigators don't yet know how the fire started and with the roof collapsed, it could be days before the site is safe enough to access.
There's still a lot of hot spots within the building that we are extinguishing.
The damage bill here for the building alone will run into the millions of dollars, and that's not even taking into account the loss of stock or trade for the company. For its 100 or so workers, that means a very uncertain future.
Worried what we're going to do.
Many are casuals who say there couldn't be a worse time to be looking for work. Andrew Denny, 7 News.
A roof cleaner is fighting for life after plunging 3 metres when a roof gave way at Wahroonga Public School this morning. The 52-year-old man suffered head and stomach injuries. A care flight team placed him in an induced coma and gave him a blood transfusion before he was taken to Royal North Shore Hospital in a critical condition. The first dedicated independent review has been ordered into the Newmarch House crisis, hoping to prevent another coronavirus outbreak in aged care. 2 health experts in charge have just 1 month to report back. Residents' families are concerned they were only told about it after it had already started.
Like other residents' relatives, Anthony Bowe received the email last night. His mum, Pat, is a Newmarch House coronavirus survivor.
I think all the families have been a bit blindsided by what's come out last night.
Newmarch's operator Anglicare centred on behalf of the Federal Health Department. It revealed 2 experts were conducting an independent review to examine the extent, impact, management and contributory causes of the COVID-19 outbreak. 19 lives were lost at Newmarch, more than 70 residents and staff infected.
I welcome any investigation into what happened at Newmarch.
The inquiry is already underway, a final report due in a month. Families given a week to register their interest to give evidence. We understand that while these are tight timeframes, it is important to quickly identify lessons learned so that we can share these with aged care service providers, the email reads.
Aged care facilities obviously are a major concern to us. We are remaining very vigilant.
The government's committed to making the report public, the findings also to be forwarded to the Aged Care Royal Commission, which is examining the outbreak separately.
The families are already distraught enough, they've been through enough, and the government should be more transparent about what is happening with this inquiry.
Alex Hart, 7 News.
A Sydney landmark has been given a multi-million-dollar lifeline. The Carriage Works precinct in Everleigh has been saved from bankruptcy by a group of generous donors. A team of philanthropists and organisations, including the Packer Family Foundation, jumped in at the last minute. Together, they've managed to rescue the stricken arts and cultural institution. It was a dramatic start to the day, with Sydney waking to a really thick blanket of fog stretching from the coast all the way to the mountains. This was our CBD from the news helicopter this morning. The streets completely obscured by low cloud. It was a similar story further west. These pictures from Cabarita on the Parramatta River. The fog hung around for most of the morning before being swept away once those winds picked up around 10:30. Well, Sally Barry's here now. Sal, good evening. We're being warned there's some wild weather ahead.
Yeah, that's right, Michael. We've got a deep low barrelling towards us this weekend. The heaviest rain will fall between Monday and Wednesday. The city will see up to 40 millimetres. Our west will be hit too, Parramatta soaked by around 20 millimetres. But the south coast, that will see the worst of it, up to 60 millimetres forecast for Wollongong. The low will sit between Ulladulla and Eden, whipping up winds up to 50 kilometres an hour along the coast. Also some very powerful 3-metre swell. That'll be a little later in the week. Currently along the coast, though, it's a fairly pleasant 16 degrees, 13 degrees at Penrith. I'll have full details on the wild weather ahead for Sydney with the 7-day forecast a little later, Michael.
All right, Sally, we'll look forward to that. Thank you. A star of the TV show Glee is presumed dead. Her son stranded in a boat mystery on a California lake. Next, her chilling final moments on camera. Plus, violent and cowardly, a man jailed over a home invasion in Sydney South. Feeling faint the moment a supermarket worker became royally overwhelmed. Later, Sydney's biggest real estate turnaround, which former struggle streets are now lined with million-dollar homes. And soon in sport, the late call-up that became a 5-star performance by a flying rooster. Welcome back. A man who bashed a well-known local swimming instructor at her home in Sydney South has been jailed for 7 years for the violent and cowardly assault. The 38-year-old broke into Rose Agis's Lugano home in March last year, leaving the 74-year-old unconscious with severe head injuries. Joshua Petranka, who was known to the victim, also ransacked the house looking for money to fund his drug habit. He'll be eligible for parole in 2023. A pair of thugs involved in a sickening attack in Penrith last year have been sentenced. The court heard Wendell Millgate and Byron Donovan were part of a gang that ambushed two men in the car park of the Panthers McDonald's in February 2019. One was a 32-year-old father beaten so badly his nose, cheek, ribs and skull were broken. Millgate was given 3.5 years behind bars. Donovan was sentenced to 2 years and 9 months. The search for an American actress is tonight a recovery mission, with police in California presuming the Glee star Naya Rivera has drowned. She'd rented a boat with her young son. He was found in it, alone, with no sign of his mother, adding a new layer of tragedy to what many already call the Glee curse.
On a warm summer's afternoon, Naya Rivera captured on camera for the final time, hiring a boat with her 4-year-old, heading out for a day on the lake. Hours later,
the emergency is we have a missing person. We found a little girl in one of the boats by herself, and her mom's nowhere to be found.
It was, they later discovered, her son, Josie, found asleep and alone as a desperate search began. Teams of divers scouring Lake Piru, an hour north of Los Angeles.
There's no signs of foul play, no signs of anything that went wrong besides a tragic accident.
Rivera's son was wearing a child's life vest. An adult jacket was found on board. The little boy told police they'd been swimming and his mum never made it back on the boat. It may look calm, but Lake Piru is deceiving. The currents can be strong, the water murky. So today, police have brought in specialist cadaver dogs that can pick up human scent beneath the water's surface.
If the body is entangled in something beneath the water, it may never come back up.
The cast of Glee suffering again. 33-year-old Rivera would be the third star of the show to die young. A drug overdose, a suicide. Now a tragedy seemingly foreshadowed by the actress herself, telling fans only days ago, make the most of today. Tomorrow is not promised. In Lake Piru, Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
A scaffolding collapse has left window washers dangling, one clinging onto a rope. 12 stories up an apartment block, his co-worker stranded on their hanging platform. Fire crews arrived to rescue them, but their ladder wasn't tall enough. So instead, the workers had to be pulled in through broken windows. Clearly not too shaken, both went back to work, believe it or not, only saying that it was really hot up there. Their boss says a motor malfunction caused the platform to fail. America's Supreme Court has ruled a New York prosecutor can access Donald Trump's financial records, negating his claim that he has absolute immunity. It means the president could be forced to release his tax returns to a grand jury as part of an investigation into hush money claims. The case has been sent back to a lower court, so nothing will happen before November's election. The president calls it a witch hunt. Not every day you meet a prince, and it was certainly an overwhelming moment for this supermarket worker in Bristol. Poor fellow. Well, the future king stood by while the man was looked after. He was okay, even returning to continue his conversation with Prince Charles, who then told staff there that they all deserve a stiff drink after all that fuss. He assaulted a teenage girl and bashed a blind man and his guide dog in Western Sydney. Next, a punishment handed down for the sickening crime spree. Plus, blood on the walls, the dark side of Johnny Depp's acting trip to the Gold Coast, a Perth driver's sinking feeling, what caused a huge hole to open up in the road, and from Struggle Street to Millionaires Row, which Western Sydney suburb is bucking the real estate trend. That's all next. A commuter's been jailed over a violent rampage where he attacked a blind man and his guide dog. Jack Ma was not only high on drugs but also on parole at the time.
His unprovoked and brutal assault was branded extraordinarily grave and very serious. The magistrate today urging Jack Ma to wake up to himself.
And I'm all about you. I won't push you aside. But
his twin brother, his only support at court today.
Got to say anything on your brother's behalf?
No, thank you.
It's hard to imagine a more vulnerable victim. Vision impaired and reliant on a guide dog, David Gearin was blindsided by the unprovoked assault on a train to Blacktown in May.
I won't lie, it was very frightening.
The court heard 24-year-old Ma was high on drugs and doesn't remember what he did, punching Mr Guerin in the head, kicking his guide dog Odin repeatedly. While accepting responsibility and pleading guilty early, Ma said he was stressed after his partner suffered a miscarriage. You're spreading trauma to other people. You have a history of violence and a history of going to prison, and you're not doing anything about it.
And I'm all about you. I won't push you aside, but
7 News spoke to David Guerin today, telling him of the result here at court. He was pleased that Ma had been jailed for at least 2 years, but he also wanted to pass on again his thanks to the off-duty train driver who intervened and brought this savage assault to an end. Ma will spend a year on parole once he's released at the earliest in May 2022. Evan Batten, 7 News.
There have been more arrests after rival gang members terrorised each other with machetes and frightened commuters at a Western Sydney train station. A 42-year-old man has been charged over the frightening confrontation that happened last month at Rooty Hill. Police say he was waving around a machete before he was confronted by 4 boys who had their own weapons. The man, along with a 16-year-old, were arrested after police raided homes in Ropes Crossing and allegedly found knives, cash and drugs. Former New Zealand Prime Minister Helen Clark will co-lead a global inquiry into COVID-19. The announcement was made by the head of the World Health Organisation as he pleaded for world leaders to unite.
New Zealand's Prime Minister for almost a decade, Helen Clark, will lead the global inquiry into COVID-19.
Our world is challenged by what is happening. It challenged in ways none of us could have forecast.
The most pressing challenge, says the head of the World Health Organisation, disunity among our leaders.
How is it difficult for humans to unite to fight a common enemy?
Tedros Ghebreyesus, himself a target of criticism, says the biggest threat we face is not the virus, it's our lack of solidarity.
We cannot defeat this pandemic as a divided world. The only way forward is together.
Global infection numbers are soaring. There's a risk of a second wave here and lockdowns to cruel any economic recovery.
It's a moment for leadership from Scott Morrison and the government.
Labor wants more clarity on what will replace government support due to end in September. The government says it will announce new limited assistance in its mini-budget in a fortnight and accuses Labor of stoking fear.
The Labor Party has engaged in fear-mongering during a pandemic, and I think this is disgraceful.
Tim Lester, 7 News.
Police are searching for a driver who crashed their car at Concord and fled the scene. The white sedan was found blocking the eastbound ramp to the M4 tunnel around 1:15 this morning. Officers haven't been able to locate the driver and urge anyone with information to please contact them. The actor Johnny Depp admits his rented Gold Coast mansion was left trashed and bloodstained after an argument with his then-wife Amber Heard. The court heard their relationship was complicated as Depp sues a British tabloid for calling him a wife-beater.
To Aussie fans, he was a playful pirate.
Now your husband's going to be very angry.
But behind closed doors on the Gold Coast, Johnny Depp says he was miserable and having nervous breakdowns. His then wife, Amber Heard, claims she was the victim of a 3-day drug-fuelled hostage ordeal, slapped, grabbed by the throat and spat on. During the fight, Depp claims Heard threw a vodka bottle, severing his finger. He used blood to write messages on mirrors and walls, smashing windows and a television. The damage to Mick Doohan's mansion estimated at $150,000. There were many times when I said to Miss Heard, "We are a crime scene waiting to happen." The court was also read text messages exchanged by Depp and his assistant trying to find drugs in Australia, cocaine and happy pills. While back in LA, there was another heated argument. Photos tendered to the court showing the actress bruised after a headbutt and clumps of hair pulled out.
I headbutted you on the forehead. That doesn't break me out.
Johnny Depp denies all of the abuse allegations, repeatedly labelling them a hoax, but he said he would express his anger by hitting objects rather than a person he loves. Calling his ex-wife's claims pedestrian fiction, part of a drama that continues. In London, Sarah Greenolch, 7 News.
A huge sinkhole has almost swallowed a car in Perth. The Honda hatchback nosedived into the hole as it suddenly opened up. The young woman driving the car was shocked but not hurt. A tow truck eventually dragged the car out of the hole. A burst water main is the culprit. The State Library galleries will emerge from COVID lockdown with a controversial first exhibition. Next, how it's giving the past a different perspective. Plus, feeling the pandemic pinch, the Sydney suburbs taking the biggest financial hit. Wet and Wild, the adventurous beagle who sparked a rescue emergency.
And rain is on its way. Sydney's 7-day forecast soon.
Let's have a look at finance now. The market ended the week down, the ASX 200 falling 0.6% after a week of rising uncertainty. The numbers growing worse for Qantas, losing close to 3% today, and the dollar softened a little, still under 70 cents a litre. The average price of unleaded is on the way up, sitting just over $1.11 a litre. It has been selling in Padstow for under $1. New data has revealed which suburbs are taking the biggest financial hit from the COVID downturn. Middle-class professionals living in the inner suburbs are being impacted hard, with Erskineville, Crows Nest, Neutral Bay and Surrey Hills among the worst off in those categories. Also, the northern beaches and our northwest, including St Clair and Horsley Park. While many professionals haven't lost their jobs, they have been forced to take pay cuts, reduced hours, and are not eligible for government stimulus payments. Australia has a new multi-millionaire, but their identity remains a mystery. Their boosted bank balance comes off the back of last night's Powerball jackpot, where one lucky Victorian scooped the entire $80 million prize. The entry is not registered, however, so officials have no way of contacting the winner. So they'll just have to wait until they come forward. The ticket, we do know, was sold in the Mornington Peninsula area. A new exhibition at the State Library covering the arrival of Captain James Cook from an Aboriginal perspective has been criticised for trying to rewrite history. But curators say they're not trying to tarnish the explorer's legacy, rather tell both sides of the story.
Meant to open in April, 250 years to the day since Cook's landing at Botany Bay, but put on hold due to COVID-19. The State Library's latest exhibition went online and caused a stir. Mark Latham saying they were trying to rewrite history. Now, with restrictions easing, 8 days in Kamei opens to the public next week.
It was a really exciting opportunity to platform and prioritise some of the Aboriginal views on this legacy. It was no intention to tear down Cook, to remove him, to destroy history.
Incorporating historical exhibits like Cook's diary alongside modern-day art.
Probably the most iconic image in Australia of Cook's Landing.
But redrawn with Cook portrayed as a pirate. Also on display, the original botanical specimens taken in 1770. The sketches on show are reproductions, but talks are now underway with the British Museum and Library to bring out the originals and display them side by side for the first time since they were collected.
There's something kind of wonderful about that these things circle all the way back.
The gallery opens on Monday. Cameron Price, 7 News.
A morning walk's turned into a full-scale rescue to save a stranded friend who'd taken a real tumble.
Come and grab him.
No damage done, just to his pride, I suppose.
Harvey the Beagle and his owner have walked the same track for 10 years, but this morning Harvey got a little too close, slipping 10 metres down. After a wet and wild start to the day, it was no doubt time for a little afternoon nap. Well, from Struggle Street to Millionaires Row, the Sydney suburb that could be our biggest real estate turnaround, the sale that's a sign of what's to come in humble Mount Druitt. Don't miss that story soon here on 7 News. Well, the NRL has made a big stand today. Matt Shervington is here to tell us all about it. Matt, first though, a big welcome from all of us to the 7 News team. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. Great to be here with you and also with the rest of the team. You're all making me feel so welcome. And here we go. Let's get started. There's a lot happening in the NRL, including fresh punishment for Manly's Adam Fanua-Blake. That's next. Also, mate against mate. What's Ricky Stewart up to with Craig Bellamy?
You see if you do, I'll run around the Twin Waters golf course naked.
And the moment we thought Usain Bolt's 200-metre world record had been shattered. Welcome back. The NRL will set an example with Adam Fanua-Blake by making him referee wheelchair rugby league games. The Manly prop was fined $20,000 for his derogatory tirade, and the league's vowed to stamp out referee abuse.
The NRL's acting CEO Andrew Abdo had the final say on Adam Fanua-Blake's referee tirade.
I don't care who it was directed at, I don't care whether it was intended to be heard or not. It's unacceptable, it's black and white.
The Manly prop was banned for 2 games from the Match Review Committee. Today he copped extra sanctions for breaching the NRL's anti-vilification code.
Adam is also going to be fined an amount of $20,000, none of which will be suspended, all of which will be payable to Wheelchair Rugby League Australia.
Fanua-Blake will also have to complete an online refereeing course, then take charge of some wheelchair rugby league games and attend a training camp.
Sport is about bringing people together and uplifting their lives, and that certainly didn't occur on Sunday.
Abdo was strong about the focus not being on the punishment but about the education and rehabilitation. He hopes by Fanua-Blake taking part in these extra activities, he'll come away with a better understanding and respect for people with disabilities. For a lesson in genuine perseverance, Matt Ikuvalu's 5-try performance for the Roosters against the Cowboys.
I remember just getting happy getting the 2 tries as the first time I scored 2, but getting 5 is, it's unreal.
The 26-year-old from the Wyong Roos on the Central Coast got a late call-up to play when Brett Morris went down in the warm-up.
They prepare in the shadows, these guys. I think the first for a Rooster since 55. And he's a really humble, shy kid.
Michelle Bishop, 7 News.
There appears to be a mutiny emerging at the Broncos. The players have seized control of training and tactics from coach Anthony Seibold this week. It included golf, lighter sessions and breakfast instead of training today.
Get that culture back in this team. Get that team vibe back. If things don't go right this weekend, we only got ourselves to blame.
Ricky Stewart's at his best ahead of hosting Craig Bellamy's Storm tomorrow night.
I spoke to Craig during the week and he said that there's no way in the world you'll get us 4 times in a row. And he said if you do, I'll run around the Twin Waters golf course naked.
Rick, which he does a fair bit, has told a little fib there. I haven't actually spoken to him this week.
And Cameron Munster could return from his knee injury. Unfortunately, this was Tremaine Spry's first touch in the NRL tonight in a horror start by the Titans against the Warriors.
As Tuivasa-Sheck gets to the outside, glides over.
That's Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's 50th try, and soon the Warriors were up 12-0. Anthony Don put the Titans on the board, but they trailed 12-6 near half-time. The first ever round without a single AFL game in Melbourne started with strange scenes at Geelong playing Brisbane at our Sydney Cricket Ground last night. The Cats replaced the Lions in second place with a 27-point win against them.
The AFL is between a rock and a hard place, and I think this year is one of those years where we've just got to do what has to be done. And
it'll be just as unusual tonight when Collingwood play a home game against Hawthorn at Giants Stadium. England's cricketers have swapped saliva for back sweat as the new lubricant for shining the ball in the first test of the coronavirus era.
To be honest with you, it's not. I thought it was going to be a lot weirder than it was. The only thing that's missing is probably the crowd.
West Indies captain Jason Holder took 6 for 42 to roll England for just 204 on day 2. The Windies are 1 for 57 in reply, and the Sheffield Shield has finally been delivered to New South Wales for the 47th time, 4 months after they became champions once again. The 3 Melbourne A-League teams will fly to Sydney tomorrow to start a 14-day quarantine period before they can join the season's resumption. The clubs have been given permission to train during isolation. In the Premier League this morning, Manchester United thrashed Aston Villa 3-0 to sit 1 point outside the top 4. For a few moments this morning, it seemed Usain Bolt's mind-blowing 200-metre world record had been smashed. Running in the virtual inspiration games, American Noah Lyles posted a scorching time of 18.91, a third of a second faster than Usain Bolt's best.
And the others are, maybe a second. That cannot be right. That cannot be right.
And it wasn't. Lyles ran in the wrong lane, which was 15 metres short. But the 22-year-old is closing in, already the 4th fastest of all time. And Michael, that is what dreams are made of. A 15-metre head start against Usain Bolt. Would have loved to have had it.
Did you ever get that? Bet you didn't.
Not quite. I was 15 metres behind.
You'd know that feeling, like, wouldn't you, of holding a record and then maybe losing it? Be a tough one.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Good on you, Matt. Thank you. Well, what a difference a few years can make. Mount Druitt, a suburb once synonymous with the phrase Struggle Street, has now been given a new label, Millionaires Road. 2 homes have just sold for an eye-watering price, and experts say it is a sign of things to come.
These Mount Druitt homes are humble, but their owners have hit the jackpot.
This home, it's 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom on 1,000 square metres. It's practically a gold mine right here in Mountain County.
2 neighbouring houses on Fuller Street sold to developers for $1,725,000, smashing a new suburb record.
It's gone from Struggle Street to Millionaires Row.
Despite the pandemic and fears of a property slump.
A lot of those development opportunities are really driving values for sale.
The results causing a stir among the neighbours.
What? What are you thinking? I don't know what's my house worth.
Lived here our whole life. I can't imagine my mum ever wanting to move anywhere else.
Yeah.
The median house price just $605,000, set to change. The face of this entire suburb is about to be transformed. Mount Druitt has been rezoned by the state government and developers are moving in. Taller buildings now allowed, with 24 projects already fast-tracked in a $1.5 billion push to boost confidence and create jobs during COVID-19.
In the long term, we're expecting strong population growth, the north-south rail line and other new infrastructure that's really going to drive that as a growth centre.
This definitely represents a turning point for Mount Druitt, and dare I say it could compete with the Parramatta CBD in the next 10 years.
Serena Andaloro, 7 News.
Well, love is in the air at the Sea Life Sydney Aquarium, where 3 new little penguins are hoping to find a mate. P. Diddy, Mushroom and Kiki have been nicknamed the Bachelorettes by keepers. So far, the ladies have been playing hard to get, though, with the mating season now in full swing. It's hoped they'll find their Mr. Right soon and have some little penguins all their own. There you go. All right, Sally's back now. Sal, good evening again. After a dry start to winter, the rain is on the way.
Yeah, it certainly is, Mike. We've got some decent rainfall as well into next week. Currently, though, the skies are pretty calm. It's 15 degrees in the city. Sydney's forecast is next.
Shattering moment in their driveway.
And I didn't even see her.
The fight to save lives for Aurora, only on 7 News, Monday.
Tonight's 7 News headlines. There are fears of a new coronavirus cluster in Sydney, with 2 positive cases linked to the Crossroads Hotel at Casula. Hundreds of people are now lining up to be tested. The Sheaf Hotel in Double Bay has copped a $5,500 fine for breaching social distancing rules on Wednesday night. Victorians are all being told to wear masks after recording 288 new cases, the nation's largest daily spike. Melbourne is heading into its first weekend back in lockdown. A warm welcome from the Sunshine State, long queues and happy reunions as Queensland finally reopens its borders, and an intense factory inferno in Moorebank is expected to keep burning for days. Now, here's Sally with Sydney's weather.
Thanks for that, Michael. Well, heavy fog hit the city this morning and we have a decent dose of rain now on the way into next week. Today, though, we reached a top of 17 degrees once that fog just burnt off. It was fairly sunny into the afternoon after a low this morning of 11. Now, the cold spot this morning was Camden, 5 degrees there. Temperature-wise, most of us got to around 16 to 17 degrees today, which is spot on average. The main weather feature we're watching at the moment, though, is this complex low and also just the series of troughs associated with it. That is sweeping east. That low will move closer to Sydney over the weekend. Models are forecasting it'll sit just south of us into Sunday, and that's going to generate some really heavy rain and showers, particularly for the south coast. Falls of up to 200 millimetres forecast for that area. A little bit less for Sydney, though. Around the capitals for tomorrow, possible showers expected in Brisbane, 24 degrees. Canberra, a little bit of cloud and showers at times, 14 degrees there. Storms possible into Melbourne, 14 degrees. Adelaide, showers and 13. While over on the west coast, it'll be a sunny day tomorrow with a top of 18 degrees expected. Zooming in on New South Wales. Now, that low, as I said, will just sweep right across the south of the state into tomorrow. Some showers starting up ahead of it. Those will fall as snow for Thredbo. Chance of also just a storm or two for the ski fields. Some early fog is also forecast for Wagga Wagga into tomorrow with a top of 15 degrees expected. While across the northeastern quarter of the state should be mostly fine and sunny, so some good weather for school holidays. Coffs Harbour heading for 21 degrees. Across Sydney's suburbs tomorrow, we can expect to see a morning shower or two. In terms of the rainfall, it'll be fairly light, 1 to 3 millimetres. The coast will see the best falls. By the afternoon, it should be mostly sunny. And in terms of temperatures, 21 degrees at Parramatta. On the coast tomorrow, that swell is set to build into next week. Norwesterly winds are forecast tomorrow. Tomorrow, it'll just be a 1 metre swell. The city will drop to 11 degrees tonight. We might just see a little bit of patchy morning fog once again. It should clear fairly quickly. Then we'll have a shower or two with a top of 21 degrees expected. Looking ahead, showers will increase on Sunday with the top of 19 degrees. Monday, the chance of a thunderstorm as well. Heaviest falls into Tuesday, up to 20 millimetres for the city then. The wind should start to ease back on Wednesday, still wet into Thursday and Friday. So it's good to see some rain up all the blue skies we've had. It's nice.
It's not too bad. All right. Thanks, Sal. Well, that is 7 News for this Friday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening, and sunrise is from 7 a.m. I'm Michael Usher from all the team here. Thanks for your company and have a great Friday night.